Good morning and afternoon to the Western side, and also evening to Japan and Korea, konbanwa. So our research question is, to what extent can we identify distinct instruments and country policy goals that reflect a novel co-creation approach versus a more traditional knowledge transfer approach? So here we divide our techniques into 3 databases that we are provided, and mainly for the we start from the STIP compass, where we have the keywords extracted, and we use the keyword co-occurrence in our network analysis method to classify our policy initiatives, whether it has more weight for co-creation or the knowledge transfer. Then this result will be feed it into the left and right-handed side techniques, which use different databases. So first, we contact with our team leader, Mr. Diego, for some keywords that are highly related to each category, the co-creation and the knowledge transfer. We use the network analysis method to classify to find the co-occurred keywords associated with the keywords that on the left-hand side. And as you see on the right-hand side, for the co-creation keywords, it's shown in green color, and the knowledge transfer keywords are in orange color. Then we classify our policy initiative, whether it's more into the co-creation or knowledge transfer, based on the weight of the keywords. For example, in here, 70% of the keywords are co-creation and 30% are knowledge transfer. Therefore, we give more weight to the co-creation and say that this policy is doing more co-creation activities.
And for the STI Scoreboard dataset, we've chosen 8 indicators that we expect to reflect either co-creation or knowledge transfer. These are indicators within BERT, herd, BERT, and co-padding, which can be seen on the following slide. And first, we did a linear dimensionality reduction on the data using principal component analysis. This was done partly as a pre-processing step, but all for the clustering, but also to see if some variables load similarly to the dimensions, suggesting that they reflect the same underlying concept, hoping to find distinct indicators for co-creation and knowledge transfer. And with the dimensionality reduced data, we did a clustering analysis to see if we could distinguish between countries in terms of their performance on co-creation and knowledge transfer. And lastly, we made use of the results from the cluster and PCA analysis together with the results from the STIP compass to select the most contributing indicators.
In this step, we use TIP STI strategy dataset. The dataset has 315 STI policy strategy documents. In first step, next slide, please. In first step, we computed word embedding based on TF-IDF weighted word-to-vec, and the word-to-vec embedding had 300 dimensions. Next. Please. We plotted network between all policies document based on semantic similarity. In this network, nodes nodes are policy documents and H are semantic similarity score between them. And in next step, we detected 12 different community within the network. Based on common words and 5 most central policy document within each community, we did community characterization. Finally, we run keyword analysis for distinguish knowledge transfer and knowledge co-creation for each community.
So here will be our result. First, we find the top countries with the most diversified target groups. On your right-hand side, you will see that the average number of target actors are a bit higher in co-creation than knowledge transfer of both of them, which is the overlap between co-creation and knowledge transfer. And the left-hand side will be the countries with the highest average number of actors in each types of target groups, for example, research and education organizations, firms, intermediaries, governments, etc. We also found that the co-creation also has a bit more diversified themes, as shown on the top right corner. And when we rank the countries, then we can also see that in the co-creation part, the mean number of themes in some countries such as Mexico, Republic of North Macedonia are higher than the ones in knowledge transfer. We also found that there are some differences in the proportion of co-creation policies versus the knowledge transfer policies. In the block here on the red block here, we can see that in 2019 and 20, the number of co-creation policies exceeds those of the knowledge transfer. And when we classify based on the countries, we can see that there are some countries that put more budget weight on the co-creation policies than the knowledge transfer. For those who put more on co-creation, there are Sweden, China, and some European Union, Italy. There are also the developing countries such as Thailand and Malaysia, but it's kind of a small proportion. For the knowledge transfer, there are Peru, France, Kazakhstan, United Kingdom, etc. Then we also run the communities topic based on common words in policy text. And these red blocks are something that we found interesting and also related to the co-creation, such as the energy emission, which is about sustainable energy development, some COVID-19, climate change, AI, and investment program. These graphs show that for the co-creation related communities, such the one that I talked before, Japan occupies more policies that are related to sustainable energy development. Many other countries are doing more on investment program, and then Germany is doing more on climate change and also AI developments, higher than the rest of the categories.
And from the PCA, we found that most of our indicators contribute to the first principal component when looking at this biplot. And by triangulating the data from the STIP compass, we found that the dimension 1 correlates positively with both co-creation and knowledge transfer. And the dimension 2 has a small negative correlation with both knowledge transfer and co-creation initiatives. And with the PCA, based on this, we did the clustering where we found 3 clusters. The first represent countries such as Guatemala, Armenia, Brazil. The second, which is the green one, represents countries such as Argentina, Spain, Australia. And the third one are countries such as Germany, Denmark, and Finland. And again, when triangulating the data with the STIP compass, we see that cluster 1 generally have a low degree of knowledge transfer. You can see that on the next slide, and co-creation, whereas this is higher for both the second and the third cluster, with the third cluster having the highest scores. And lastly, based on the indicators with positive correlation with both knowledge transfer and co-creation, we are able to find the same trends over time that we find in the STIP compass, namely an upward going trend during the most recent years. So based on this STI compass or scoreboard, we are not able to find distinct indicators for knowledge transfer and co-creation indicators. But in the STIP compass, we are able to classify knowledge transfer and co-creation, where we find that the co-creation policies have a more broad themes, more broad target groups. We also find that they have that there's a greater focus towards co-creation during COVID-19. And lastly, that countries like Sweden, Italy, and China have a significant co-creation budget. And lastly, in the STIP strategies, we are able to detect distinct topics. And again, by triangulating the data with the STIP compass, we found that co-creation occurs most often within topics like COVID-19, sustainable energy, and project investment.
We can improve the accuracy of the result using name entity recognition for identifying relevant keywords for distinguishing between knowledge transfer and knowledge co-creation documents. And also we can use a sentence transformer model for computing embeddings at sentence level to improve the accuracy of the model. Accuracy of the result. And this is in-depth presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is, it's really great that you had a separate approach for each of the datasets and then try to combine them. Yeah, I mean, it's really great that you could see how each of the datasets could fit into each other. So now I will invite Tiago for a comment.
Yes, thanks. My connection is a bit unstable, so I apologize in advance if there is some interruptions. But thanks a lot to Katie, Aaron, and Hamid. I think this is very interesting, and also thanks for keeping with the time. I think I think the work that you've done. I think it also shows here an interesting thing, like Andres was saying about analyzing the different data sets with kind of concrete specific methods for each one, and then trying to see whether there is some convergence or not between them, which may give some highlight about the things. If I recall an earlier of the papers on bibliometric analysis and bibliometric assessment by Ben Martin and John Irvine highlighted the issue about convergent partial indicators. So I think the issue of that we know that each of these approaches to analysis, and so the extent to which there is a convergence gives further robustness. And here there isn't totally. There is some, for example, in terms of the number of, if I recall, in the number of the target groups and the number of themes. But in terms of the clear distinction, for example, in terms of the STI scoreboard was not clear, which I guess may also suggest that it doesn't only suggest but also reflects, well, the fact that we introduce a new concept into kind of our policy analysis, but in terms of how they actually adhere to the reality, it's not so clear cut. And for example, on the exercise of identifying keywords, we had the experience that it is not so easy to either we have a very small set of keywords, or if we try to enlarge the number of keywords, it's not so easy to understand to make a clear cut distinction between, in this case, the co-creation and the knowledge transfer. And I think eventually, for example, one thing that may be interesting in the future may be about some kind of sensibility analysis. For example, how do these results change with some kind of minor tweaking with the data? But I felt that was particularly interesting in general terms. That I did find some relation with what I might expect from knowledge of the area, for example, the time trends, and that co-creation seems to be more relevant at present than 20 years ago. So that's the argument, and also in terms of the kind of that co-creation seems to identify policies and instruments that have greater diversification in terms of target groups and in terms of themes, and that relates to how we see co-creation differently from knowledge transfer. So I could connect to that, and I think that's one of the interesting things. Is yes, we have some advanced methodological work on data, but from the point of view of the policy analyst or the policymaker, can we connect to the results? Can we connect to what you are doing? And I did find we did have a couple of exchanges before, but I did find connection with what you were doing in terms of the process and with the results that you achieved. So I'm very glad, and thanks a lot for the work you put on this.